up, guys? Got Bruce and Jake here. How are you guys doing? How you doing, Jake?
Hey, doing good, man.
They can't talk to us, but they can put some comments in. So if you're watching on YouTube or if you're in Facebook, feel free to drop a question or whatever. We'll be reading those as we go through this. This is just part of our weekly stream. We just try to share some advice for other creative business owners who are trying to build a business, trying to be creative, but also do all the kind of boring business stuff at the same time. So hopefully we'll be able to provide some value. Did Jake get a Mac? Yes, he did get a Mac. That is correct. So we've been trying to get Jake to get a Mac, I think this whole year since January. So yeah, that's awesome, guys. Yeah, so very good. I'm going to talk a little bit today about a topic that I've gotten very, very into the last couple of weeks and months, and I've kind of been driving my team crazy with it. But we, as our company, we build a lot of software, build a lot of products, and so we have been refining kind of how we scope up, and there's this topic called and this method called shape up, and how you shape up work and how you get it done, to kind of plan it out, organize what you want to do, how much time you want to spend on it, and then kind of figure out what resources do you want to actually devote to this idea, this concept, and trying to take a lot of the risk out of it and a lot of the unknowns out of it. And so the guys from Basecamp have written a book called Shape Up, which I'm going to kind of be looking through today. And you can go, I'll link to it down below, but let me share my screen real quick here. So this is the book. It's basecamp.com/shapeup, free book. These guys are very original in kind of how they do stuff. They publish the whole book for free online, and you would think they would ask you for an email address so that it could be some sort of lead magnet, but nope. These guys are like a breath of fresh air. You click down, read it online, and guess what? You can start reading it. There's no email opt-in or anything. So for all the marketing guys out there, that's it's kind of refreshing to just have content just available. And this is an entire book. So this, I'm not going to go through this. Is about 150 pages. They talk about how they shape up work at Basecamp, how kind of gets into the nitty gritty of how to organize projects. And they really focus specifically on software and product development and product design type angle. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about some of the concepts here and then talk about how this actually applies to just running a small business and how you can kind of pull this into your everyday stuff. So the kind of place where I want to start is just talking through this idea of setting boundaries. So they have this concept that's called setting an appetite for a project. So what this is you kind of break it down into a 2, 4, or a 6 week appetite. So this is you as the business owner saying, hey, I'm willing to devote 6 weeks of our time to this. This is a full cycle. So Basecamp works in these 6 week cycles, and then they take a 2 week kind of buffer, and then they do another 6 week cycle, and then they stack kind of these modules of work inside that. So they kind of plan out this project, will take 2 or 3 people 6 weeks to go do. And then they kind of fit it into that span of 6 weeks. And the idea of setting an appetite is so that you actually make sure that you launch in that 6 week time frame. You don't just keep extending it and adding new things. And let me put this one up more idea in there. The idea is to kind of shape the work back, scope it back to fit inside of 6 weeks. Because if you as the business owner are saying, and really you're the one who has to set that appetite, you're the one who's you're the one paying the bills, at the end of the day. So if you have a team of 2 or 3 people, you're having to pay those people for their time. So if 6 weeks, you can do some math of how much that's actually going to cost. And so you're the one who has to pay for it. So you're the one who needs to decide essentially what you want to spend time on. So you may have an idea to launch a new idea, like a sales page for a product or whatever, and say, look, I'm willing to invest, 2 weeks of time into this. And what you do is you try and you kind of scope the work back to what can actually get done inside of 2 weeks by you or by your team, and kind of looking at what bandwidth and stuff you have. So the idea is to kind of zero in and focus just on that one thing as much as you can for those 2 weeks and then go off. This is not something where you want to go in and have like 7 different projects running and they're all 2 weeks and you're trying to jump between 7 different projects. This is kind of getting very focused on just one thing and getting it out the door inside of that. The appetite conversation is very helpful because it doesn't talk about dollars and cents. It actually is just a way to talk about people's time, which is the most finite resource you have in your company. So the project kind of starts by setting boundaries of like the time frame that you want inside of that. So you, as the owner, are setting that, and then you're setting out like to go and solve some sort of problem and then have some sort of solution. So while I'm kind of talking about this, I'm going to actually just pull up kind of how we use this at our company. And I'll pull up a little template we have right here. We're huge fans of Notion, so I'm going to be showing it to you in Notion. All right. So this is sort of what the vetting process looks like. Let me get this front and center and big. So we start a new project. This could be like we want to, send gift bags to new customers. We want to launch this new sales page. We want to launch this new product or service or whatever. And so we start everything like this. We have a little template built and we have to go through and fill this out. And this is mostly for me as the owner, as Bruce, because the way that I think, like I kind of like to get an idea for something and then we just dive head first for it. We're like, cool, sales page. I'm going to just open ClickFunnels and start building something. That's like the worst way to do this. Taking literally 15 to 20 minutes. This does not take long to do this for every project. Saves so much time on the back end, especially if you're working with like other team members. We have saved so much time. And honestly, like I feel like I have a different team, like because of using this process. And guess what changed? Like the team didn't change, but like how Bruce talked to the team changed a whole lot. Like, so guess whose problem it was. So this has been very, very helpful for me. I feel like I can spend a lot more time kind of thinking these things through, putting this together. So I'm going to go through this and then we'll kind of debrief it a little bit. So when we're starting out, we have a category. We kind of organize it as like a draft and then we move it into pitch when it's ready to go. But we choose the appetite. Like, do we want a 2-week, a 4-week, a 6-week project? And this is me saying like, hey, this is such a big issue, such a big thing. If we can solve this one thing in 6 weeks, like I would be willing to spend all of our resources as a company for 6 weeks to get this one thing solved. So it has to be a pretty sizable thing, but it also has to be something that you can actually, they always say you have to ship it in 6 weeks. You got to get it out the door. You got to turn on the ads. You got to get it live. This is not kind of still spending another week or two after that, like working out the bugs. It's just kind of going live at the end of 6 weeks. Then you can kind of close that chapter and move on to the next block of work. So that's the appetite. And then we go through these different things. We talk about the problem. So this is if you're doing software, it could be like, what's the problem customers are facing? So this could be something like our customers are coming to us who they can't afford a $3,000 website, but they do have $1,500 to spend. We currently don't have a product at the $1,500 price point. And you just talk about the problem. We feel like we could sell it to these 2 or 3 things. If we did that, whatever, kind of go into some details of that. And so that's how we kind of frame up the problem. And this can be like, a few paragraphs. You can talk about what's wrong, look at, comments. The idea is to kind of frame up the whole problem in this section. Next, we have the solution. So this is where we kind of propose what we think is the solution to the problem. Now, I'll speak a little bit to the software side. If you are designing software, the goal is not here to go and do these pixel perfect wireframes and designs and stuff. The idea here is to essentially just put enough information to kind of frame it up, and so that a designer or whatever can do it later. So they use this process called like the fat marker sketch, and it literally is that you take a giant Sharpie or an Expo marker and you kind of draw what you think it's going to be. So if this is a landing page, you could draw the landing page. Like, I think there's going to be a picture here, maybe some text over here. You're not putting words in or anything. You're not choosing which colors or anything like that. It's just ugly, dirty. It's just kind of putting in just what they, just using a fat marker to kind of get the ideas. There's no fine detail, just the big kind of broad strokes. And you're kind of writing out all of the different things. Like it should be able to do this. When I go here, it needs to be able to do that. You're kind of speaking to all the different things of how you want to set out to solve this problem. Now you're thinking of this, like you've got the walls of this kind of 4 weeks or 6 weeks of time. So you have to choose a problem that you can solve in 4 weeks. You have to choose a solution that you can implement that will actually solve that problem in 4 weeks. So you're constantly like kind of whittling it down and shaping it up to kind of fit inside this 4 week box. And so that's the solution. Then we go and we kind of write out any rabbit hole. So this is things where like the project can just like go into a rabbit hole and kind of get lost. Like we may end up getting like stuck on this one thing. Like maybe we can't figure out how to price it. Maybe pricing it's going to be, or what to include, or, a rabbit hole could be like getting the copy just right, getting the ads to actually be effective. Like that could be a rabbit hole because it's a lot of unknowns. We haven't done this one type of thing before. We've never launched Facebook ads before. So now we have to launch them. Like that could be a rabbit hole where you could spend it could suck all your time just figuring out how to do Facebook ads. So you want to list those things out. Like, hey, we're aware that this could be a rabbit hole. This could be a rabbit hole. This could be a rabbit hole. And then there's sort of out of bounds things. So we say, hey, in this project, we are not doing this. We are not doing that. We're not doing this. We're not doing this. So you're kind of drawing these other kind of lines around sort of the problem and again, putting more of those constraints in. And then just a quick little one lines, description of what it means to be, if this is successful. If it's successful, we'll solve this isn't a problem. To use my example of the website, clients will be able to, afford an awesome looking website at a kind of, discounted price, without us having, still keeping good margins or whatever. So I'll kind of show you really quick what one of these looks like, that's been completed. And so again, this is for a piece of software. So you can see like we wrote out the problem, like this on this app, we want to be able to show video and chats and static ads to a client to show pieces of content. So we needed to create these new screens. We wanted to be able to show an article. We want to be able to show like a video piece of content. We wanted to be able to share like a homepage where all this stuff would be listed. So I even put some inspiration links of different things we liked. And this is my very beautiful mock-ups here, which took me all of like 3 minutes to write. And I just did them on my whiteboard, took a picture from, on my phone. It's kind of adjusts the colors and kind of scans them in. And this is just enough information for the designer to kind of know generally what we're talking about. Like, okay, there's a homepage, there's a video, there's like some other pieces of content there. There's a row of content. So it's kind of looking like a Netflix or maybe like a news site. When I'm on the video detail page, I'm going to have a video. There's going to be some chat stuff and then maybe ads. But I'm not getting into what this looks like on mobile and all these different use cases. So this could be for a landing page. It could be for your new website. It could be for any of this. So anytime you have to kind of design something and that you're delivering as a product or a service to a client, you can do this for that same thing for the article. And then we go through rabbit holes. Like one of the things we thought would be hard would be like getting the typography just right on all these different devices. So we kind of scoped that back as well. So anyway, so it's kind of, I don't want to get too specific to this one example because it can be used for business stuff as well. And I don't have another example handy, but we did this recently for, we wanted to start sending clients a little gift box that shows up, so some swag that will show up. And we did the exact same process. We said, hey, currently like clients sign up with us, they spend all this money way up front. And then there's there's not a lot of fun elements. So the solution was to go add fun to the onboarding process. So we got one of our team members to go in, they put this whole gift box idea together, solved all the right problems. And we were able to kind of write this whole process. It had nothing to do with software. It had some design elements and stuff, but it was very much around just taking a problem, thinking through the solution, and then all the places we could get lost, in the project. And all it's really doing, is helping you think deeply about what you're about to do, which as entrepreneurs, especially creative entrepreneurs, we tend to be very just like squirrel, and we're like off into one direction, and then we see something else shiny and we go off to the other direction. So this has been very helpful for me to get a little more disciplined, take an extra few seconds, like between me saying I have this idea and then start assigning tasks to people. Like I have like 12 different like contractors that are always working with us that are available in Slack. That's very, very dangerous for someone like this, because I can just, drop bug things. I can drop notes to people, hey, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And literally like let it go for a few weeks, and I'll spend all of our money just paying all these people for all these ideas, rather than getting really focused and saying, hey, look, let's all focus onto this one thing. Let's get this one thing done. So that's kind of how this, like the pitch works. And that's kind of the biggest thing that we've used as a takeaway. And the last thing I'll just touch on, and then we're going to jump into some like little questions here, and feel free to drop questions if you're kind of watching on YouTube or Facebook, drop them in the comments. I want to just show you this. Here we go. What they call like the hill chart example. So this is the second thing that's sort of been a huge help for us in thinking about this. So what they do is, let's say you had those 3 pages of a website, or let's say you had a sales funnel. You have a landing page, an order form, and then you have this thank you page. Those things obviously need to be kind of connected together. But the goal, let's say a website, like you have a home page, an about page, a contact us page. So each one of these projects kind of starts on, they have like this hill chart example. So there's a bunch of unknowns. Like, I don't know what the copy is going to look like. I don't know what it's going to, what the design's going to lay out, like what colors are we going to use? There's so many things we don't know, and the least amount about the project when you start. So if you've done any kind of agency or creative work, like you're very familiar with this process where you just don't know. Like you kind of generally know because you've done this project before, but you don't know specifically for this project. So as you kind of start up on this project, and we figured this out as far as designing websites for clients, once we get to the top, this is where the client says they've approved the design, they've approved the copy. After that, it's everything is known. We know how to build the page, test it, launch it, host it. All the things can happen after that point. We don't even have to talk to the client after this. And we've actually created a little video that explains this to clients, so they know they are critical in this first process to get all the unknowns out of the way. And we're going to try and do that as quick as possible. And the one key point here is just that each of these can be done on a per page basis. The goal is not to move 3 pages down the field in parallel. The goal is to get the first one out the door and launched as soon as possible, and then come in and do the second and the third, because what you'll do is you'll build momentum, and then that third one will be really, really fast to knock out. So I'm going to stop there and there's so much more I can talk about. And I'm going to link to some really cool resources below. If you're interested in reading Shape Up, it's definitely worth it. You're going to have to skip over it because a lot of it's around software and development, but there's a lot of really cool product design, project design kind of things that I feel like in there. So we can chat. I wanted to share that with you, Jake. And if you've got any thoughts or questions or things we can implement this, for sure.
I love it, man. That's so cool. Anything that's like around the idea of like minimalism and efficiency and essentialism, more than just minimalism, but essentialism, which this is really essentialism at its core. Anything around that idea and marketing, like huge into that, or business development strategy. So did they build Basecamp using this model?
They did, yeah. I mean, Basecamp launched in like 2003.
Right.
And they're on Basecamp 3 already. So they've done version 1, then they did version 2, version 3. But they'll take something like a calendar in Basecamp, and then like how much time they spent around just this one calendar, getting it just right. And they talk about how they spend a lot of time. They have a whole team that just does the shaping up, and then another team that executes. So of course they got like about 50 people in their company, but there's 2 or 3 people that are kind of mainly responsible for the shape. So they kind of take a problem, they kind of work it together, they figure out like what it's going to look like, and then they hand that off to the team to go execute on it. So the idea is like kind of trying to fit all those things, kind of pulling it into just like a finite amount of time and energy they want to invest in something, and then kind of going from there. So
it seems like one of the biggest benefits is that it prevents like scope creep and things like growing, and you're like, oh, well, I also have to do this, and I have to. But then while I'm at it, I might as well like find an icon for the like tab browser. Oh crap! Well, I don't have any good icons. Maybe I should go design one. Okay, well, I don't, and then you like go down those rabbit holes, and if you're like me, sometimes those rabbit holes can be
like a lot of time,
like fatal. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is hard because as a creative, you're there, you're working on it, you get inspired, you're like, oh, I bet we could do this. And that's like you said, you kind of have to look back and say, look, well, what the goal is to actually like finish a rough version and get it out the door as fast as possible. Like get an ugly version of your sales page up and launch with Facebook ads, then come back and like add color to it. Like that would be their way of doing a landing page.
Yes.
Because if there's time, if you want to go back and change that little icon and make it and they have little like cool Notion things where they use a little the tilde little symbol on your keyboard. They put that in front of any task that is not required. So it's like a nice to have. So as you're kind of throwing tasks together and you're thinking through like, oh, I want to fix this icon, like you said, put a little tilde thing in front of that to-do item, and it's not essential. Like you can kind of skip through it, and that's been super helpful for us to look at.
Right. And so then it's like, okay, if I have time, I can add this in.
Yeah. And that way you can still capture the idea. Like maybe it's a really good idea, but you're not having to like stop everything you're doing, and then you end up missing your whole deadline just to go after that one little thing that really honestly isn't going to be, a huge win anyway.
Yeah, for sure. It helps you to get like data quicker and you get stuff out there quicker. It sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. Just to get it's kind of getting the feedback loop a lot tighter. Like, let's say you did launch an ugly Facebook, ugly sales page. You put like, a quick ad that you didn't spend a whole lot of time on. At least you got it out the door. Like you're now getting feedback on that. And so when you sit down to make it pretty, you've got Hotjar data, you've got clicks data, you've got all the stuff that you can kind of think through. Oh, people spend a lot of time on this one area. Maybe I'll move it up. Maybe we'll put this on like a different color. Like, so it's rather than getting this like beautiful, like stunning thing and then launching it, and you only start getting your data, a few weeks from when you had the initial idea, kind of shrink that all back and rather relaunch the sales page 3 times inside of that 3 weeks instead of waiting 3 weeks and launching it once, if that makes sense.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think that's so important because I would argue that like probably 80% of the time when you're a 6-figure or under entrepreneur, like 80% of the time that you launch a new project, website, ad campaign, line of business, like 80% of that time, you usually don't even really know what your customers want. Like you think you do, but most of the time we don't. I mean, there's exceptions, but like a lot of the times, because I see it all the time, people think they know what's going to look good on Facebook, or they think they know what kind of offer, but until you get out and test it and push something through the door, you don't have any feedback. So it's really easy to waste a whole month building out a funnel, and then you get hyped for a big launch and then no one buys it. And it's like, well, if you had like started with just a campaign on day one that was drafted out well, but didn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles, well, then you might have had more success.
Yeah. And I think it's also something like if you are a quick start, which I know like Jake and I have that blessing, have that curse and that blessing, we'll say at the same time. But it just means you have to scale it back and like be okay with launching something ugly. Like you could have an idea on Friday and spend a couple days and a week and then launch this idea. The idea is just to shrink it back. The whole goal is not to do 8 weeks of work inside of 4 weeks. The goal is to do 4 weeks of work inside of 4 weeks. So it's also great, like just life, kind of goal. You don't want to, quality of life goals, we'll say as well, like not to try and just kill yourself to get way more work done in a shorter period of time. Just kind of scope it back and kind of frame it to like, look, this needs to be up in a week. So I need to like scale this back, simplify where I can. Maybe you don't even need a landing page. Maybe you just need like a Facebook lead campaign. You know what I'm saying? Like if you think about it, you're like, okay, actually all this could be done on a sales call. I don't even need this like sales page. Like I could end up spending weeks designing a sales page when honestly it's going to be better if I just talk to that person. And the goal is to get it live, get talking to the people, you know what I'm saying? So it's a faster way to results essentially. So as a quick start, it is actually a faster way to get where you want instead of kind of going in sort of a crazy, like, you know, route to get there.
It is faster. It really is.
Yeah.
It is, ironically, it's more effective and it's faster to spend more time up front than on the back end, fixing things that were broken or, you know, yeah, it's better to get it out the door and ship it.
Yep, exactly. But cool. Well, that's what we're going through. And I wish I could probably spend like hours going into this stuff. And like we do as part of our team, and you know, if you have a small team, we try to read something every week as a team. And then on Fridays, we spend 30 minutes just kind of discussing it. That's a great way to like get your whole team excited and kind of on the same page. Because a lot of times, like we as the business owner get inspired by reading this blog or watching this video, and then we kind of come back and we're like, why aren't you guys all, you know, on board with me? This is a great way to kind of bring everybody along. So I actually read it for the first time with the team, and it's been very helpful. So lots of cool resources. I'll link to a bunch of stuff down below if you guys are interested. All this stuff is free and out there on the internet. So nothing to buy. Just take advantage of it for sure. Cool. Well, if you guys have any other questions on this topic, drop it in the comments and just tag me or Jake, or anything else marketing wise. Just drop it in the Facebook group. You know, drop it in the comments. We'll try and next week we're going to do this every Tuesday. Just kind of share a little something that we think is useful. But if you guys have questions, please let us know, and we'll try and get those things answered.
Talk soon, everyone. Yeah, tag us. Let us know if you have any questions.